Hello everyone and welcome to another live stream, Sunday live stream. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And I know folks will be likely joining from really all over the world. So join me today and chat with me, please. And we'll talk about guitar, jazz guitar, improvisation, and general tunes and stuff. But in particular, I'll talk about a few kind of follow-up things on some of the shorts that I've been releasing recently. In the last couple of days, I've been releasing a few videos on bossa nova patterns, and so I'll just talk a little bit about that briefly as folks are kind of coming in here. And please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications. So I've been streaming twice a week and putting out quite a few shorts and working towards doing more videos as well. Long form videos. So yeah, so we've got this here's a good voicing to work at, to play as you practice some of these. It's got one open string and it's not too much. You won't have too much fatigue on it, but you can always move this around, play it in different spots. Okay, but it's a minor 9 chord, movable shape. So when you get down to here, you just drop away finger 1. In the video I did yesterday, I ran through a few different common patterns for bossa nova, and I didn't even include the most basic one. And so I put this F sharp in the bass, and I had a rhythm section going. So this note is not one of the more significant parts of it. So it's mainly, the thumb is kind of keeping time on that, and then the index, middle, and annular fingers are playing the strings 2, 3, and 4. Oh, thanks, Jason L, for joining. Glad to hear the sound is great. That is always helpful to hear. Appreciate it, and thanks for joining. All right, so yeah, and you're just kind of plucking this. So this is kind of our spot here, and so the short I did this morning, if you check that out, I did link this live stream to that. So basically go like finger thumbs together, just fingers, thumb on its own, and just fingers. Okay, so it's kind of like, you might think long, short, and then long or longer. That's where the long short system kind of breaks down, but that's kind of the idea of it, 1 and 2 E, and so great exercise to do is to practice counting subdivisions out loud. So you can say 1 E and 2 E and then repeat that. Takademi is great too. Takademi. One E end is really good for explaining and communicating with others, because talk to just about anybody, I think, who's in the at least American, school systems or U.S. school systems. And I would assume other countries as well. You say the and of the beat or even e and then generally know if they've had some experience with either private teachers or school teachers. So, but those are great, and also to count and say things out loud is really beneficial. And try different approaches to that. Right? You just count the strong beats. 1, 2, 1, 2, and then count the 1 and. So 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and count the everything. So 1 E and 2 E and 1 E and 2 E and doing that out loud really extremely beneficial, and I try as I can to have private students do that. It sometimes takes a while to convince, but especially helpful sight reading and for everything. Speaking of which, I've just been kind of curious as to how many folks can read music on a standard notation at some level. I mean, like any level. The Fret Prince mug has arrived. Got my sample mug. I'm enjoying it. I'm not sure if it's microwavable, so that's one concern. But yeah, you can order a mug. I may change up the design a little bit. From guitar and improvisation lessons to perhaps just guitar and improvisation. I've been kind of leaning towards simplifying a little bit. I'm thinking of also designing some more different colors, maybe like a gray or a black, and having the design kind of flipped around color-wise. Been working on a few things on the channel, updating some thumbnails, trying to get a more contemporary look. And maybe just overall better design. Let's see. Eric, hey, welcome back. Awesome to hear from you. So would like to learn. Had some many years ago, but almost zero ability to really read music. Yeah, some of the challenges there, I would say it's really worth it to do, and some maybe advice on reading. I'll give you a little bit of my experience on reading. I was not a really good reader as a kid. I was also just reading books, visually. I just wasn't interested. And I took piano lessons, and the reading was kind of a pretty big hurdle for me as well. And but then taking guitar as a private student in my teenage years, my teacher there really encouraged it, and I was still very resistant to it. Faked it most of the time, and didn't practice it much. And then as a result, it was really hard to audition for stuff in my early 20s because the reading was so poor. So I just plowed into it for like, I want to say maybe 5 years, where I just really worked at it hard, and it paid off because actually I have a fairly decent, I think, reputation as a reader now, currently, and probably most folks don't know that I did struggle with it quite a lot. So Eric says, Eric, getting out of first position is difficult. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does open so much more. Yeah. The one thing, I thought about with this too was, if you've got, there are a couple dimensions to it. It's just to be, an overall well-rounded musician, whether you're just doing it for your own enjoyment or you're doing it professionally or semi-professionally or whatever, to have some well-rounded dimensions. And one thing that one of my teachers, Walter Namath, and trying not to name drop necessarily, but he was really an accomplished guitarist, played with the Buddy Rich Band for, I think, 10 years. He was like, he said, you gotta put on that jacket, put on that cloak or something like that. He has some sort of figurative message for me. Just get really well rounded, because we all have strengths and weaknesses and stuff. So yeah, I tried to get it back together, or get it together. It does open so much more. So reading up the neck, yeah, this is really important, and you can do this, using your ear strictly as well. So play a few notes, maybe do, re, mi on the C, right, and then see if you can play that same sound in another position, and let's do do, re, mi. Move up the neck and go as far as you can. Hello, Arthur. Welcome. Eric asks, is it different reading classical, say, violin etudes versus jazz bebop like Charlie Parker? Seems like all the chromatic and accidentals would be difficult in jazz. Yeah, great question. I did read a lot of violin etudes and early on to help with my reading. And yeah, it is kind of different because you maybe don't have the same sort of dialect, or maybe language. Maybe I shouldn't say as broad as language, but dialect, so to speak. But to get the foundation of playing, notes, and the classical violin etudes they'll move to closely related keys. They'll do dominant, tonic, and so all that forms a foundation. And then when you go into some of the bebop type language, you're maybe using some notes outside of that foundation. But if you've built that, then you know where the consonances are, and you're kind of reaching from between those notes, So the Bach, for solo violin solos, uh, um, partitas, and lots of arpeggios, so you can experiment with playing different arpeggios throughout. You can play that, in different, you know, uh, places up the neck. Move around. So that's like Eric was talking about, difficult to move from first position. So you take the same reading and just move it all around the neck, right? So Arthur, thanks so much for joining. Yeah, and so talking a little bit about reading, and so another thing is, I have an uncle. He's kind of like a second uncle, but a relative in the family who went to University of North Texas and graduated, and he did like a PhD in organ and all this, and I'm much younger than him, and he recommended, he of course heard about my interest in music, and he recommended pretty early on the Louis Bellson modern reading in 4/4 time. So I would spend on the rhythm aspect of things. I would spend time, working on the rhythm, because once you get the notes like pretty solid, that's ends up not really being the hard part of reading, in my opinion, or my experience. It's more like when you're playing, and that's what I think I've found with doing, especially big band music, where you really have to play the part and try to not only play the right rhythm and notes, but phrasing with the saxophone players, at least on the single line parts, which is not a whole ton, but it's there. The when is really, really important. So counting and knowing when your entrance is, stuff like that. Mel Bay classics are good. Okay, so Mel Bay classics. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I haven't checked that out. Another one I'm thinking about here is, oh boy, what was that one called? Hopefully that'll come back to me. But Melodic Rhythms. I can't remember who the publisher was. Melodic Rhythms. I think it was called Melodic Rhythms for Guitar. And that was one I had as a young person, and I mostly learned to read the chord symbols. I'm like, oh, what's that chord symbol? And I've tried to figure out how to play it. So I should have spent more time on the melodic part. So that's another thing. If anybody who's auditioning for anything, work on, if you have the list of things, don't put too much weight in any one of those aspects, and that's one mistake that I made early on, was having my own bias towards the things, or putting more importance on one thing than I should have. So, try to practice evenly if you're auditioning for university or conservatory admittance, or a military band, or a cruise ship gig, or whatever it is. Yeah, specific suggestions in a post. Yeah, like on YouTube. That's a great idea. Thanks for posting, folks. I've been talking a little bit about minor this week as well. Released a book, a PDF ebook, which is on the channel. Check it out. Exercises that have scales that you would play with specific rhythms, right? And I worked with one of my private students just yesterday on it, and he was really into it. So drills are really great for internalizing and getting things going. But back to reading a little bit. Just doing reading on a consistent basis, and sight reading. You know, sight read the real book, or that's a great one because you get really familiar with some of the tunes, right? Another benefit I would say is that if you have a lot of your own material, to communicate it with other musicians, kind of the quickest way is to write it out for them, right? So write something out. So if you can read it and write it, then so writing things down is also very helpful. So if you have an exercise, that act of physically on a piece of paper, just writing, it can solidify things too. All right, welcome. I've never served in the military, but I welcome your chat. I hope I haven't misrepresented anything when I mentioned military bands. That was just kind of an example of something that musicians might do, right? So I work with several folks who are ex-military musicians, and have some folks I've worked with in the past who went on to do military type things. I never did myself. Probably would have needed a haircut. I think I did audition. Well, I know I did, obviously, but I did audition at one point for a military band. I don't remember the specific one, but I remember they asked for a photo. I don't even know if I had long hair at that time, but anyway, they sent me a really nice letter, but I didn't end up going that route. But I will say that every military or ex-military musician I've played with has just been really, really impressive. So it's been really nice to share the bandstand with some of those folks. Kind of an important thing, I think. Because you get a lot of experience, you get a lot of rehearsal time, I think, and a lot of experience. So that's a kind of a powerful thing for your playing. Let's see, I'll mention that I'm kind of starting to get to a point with music production end of things, that I'm fairly confident that my future releases are gonna continue to get better with the production. And this has been a real learning experience, how to get instruments to kind of gel in a space and all that. So kind of learning as I go here. But thanks for being a part of all this and supportive of the channel. And I think the videos have improved over time and the audio. So I'm planning to release a lot more consistently now, which I have been doing over the last 2 months or so. And so keep an eye on the shorts. I've been doing these little mini lessons and all that. So thanks for joining again, Eric. Always good to hear from you. And do a little noodling, and then so kind of last opportunity to ask any questions or chat or make some statements. Yeah, you're most welcome. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. It's very encouraging to hear that, Eric. Thank you. So I'll talk about some of the things I've been listening to recently. A little bit of Mike Stern. I think he's got some new releases. Check him out. I've been occasionally listening to Antonio Sanchez and his drumming. And hey, Jeffrey, how's it going? Thanks for dropping in. Appreciate your hello there. So check that out, Bela Fleck banjo, but still kind of our plucked string family, I guess, and harp. So it's wild. I almost wish there was some bass in there, but it's really interesting. It's really fun to listen to. So check that out. And on Antonio Sanchez's Facebook page, he's been releasing some videos. I've always admired his playing and enjoyed listening. I think sometimes as a guitarist, it's nice to just visually see, a different instrument and a different kind of total approach, and just kind of watch somebody play the drums. It's visually very interesting, and orally as well. So check that out. That's really interesting. I've seen Antonio Sanchez live 2 times, I think. I've seen Bela Fleck live probably 2 or 3 times. and both amazing players. I'm not too familiar with the harp player, and I don't remember his name at the moment, but all super high level folks. So check them out for sure. I've been also checking out. I think his name is Jonathan Blake, and he's really impressive. Checked him out with Chris Potter and Brad Meldow. Another thing about Brad Mildow, watched a video recently of him playing some Bach and taking it into the jazz arena, maybe, and he's got some approaches to creating, you know, some jazz approaches to Bach material. So check him out as well. He's also on Facebook. He's a pianist, and so hopefully folks check out other instruments as well. You know, kind of one interest I've had is kind of those guitarists who maybe kind of transcend the instrument to some extent and really, you know, play music, not necessarily like kind of guitar music. You know, of course I appreciate guitar music. I hope I'm communicating the distinction I'm trying to make here, but you know, someone like Jim Hall, you know, this, you know, kind of don't really hear maybe like the typical cliche lines. Not that there's anything wrong with those, but yeah, I would recommend also checking out other instruments and taking something from that approach. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great practice session. Hopefully you get a chance to practice.